Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back on this beautiful Friday night. Only 7 minutes to the top of the hour of 10 p.m. I know I had promised that I will be here at 9, but my other work got in the way. In fact, by the time I reported for this broadcast, it is yet to be complete. My deadline is tomorrow, but I'll figure it out, even if it means working transnights. So, but that's that's right there. So let's park that on the side and get in with tonight's conversation in as far as the weekend is concerned, because action is bound to get underway quite soon. Of course, as the routine always is, there is action that is going to be taking place on Friday night in Friday Night Football. Pedri is back with us here, saying my favorite YouTuber is back. Thank you so much, Pedri, for always sparing the time to be with us every single morning, every single night, whenever you can afford to be with us. And thank you for your valuable contribution to some of our conversations here on the channel. Your love and support does not go unnoticed. So, without wasting any further ado, before we go any further, allow me to have our audience tested, just to make sure everything checks out well. Sometimes I forget, and then there's a time I remember I did a broadcast, and I realized at the end of it that I was not wearing a microphone. And lucky for me, that night, I think I'd been more audible than usually without a microphone. So it worked out just fine. Although, still, I'm sure those who turned up their volumes high were struggling. My favorite village is Innovation. I like it. Innovation Village is a company I worked for sometime from 2023 until I think early this year. Yes. So yeah. Anyways, tonight there's already action coming at 11 p.m. East African time, with Valencia taking up against Mallorca. Borussia Dortmund in a big one are going to be up against Borussia Mönchengladbach. Although Gladbach seem to have dropped off from the team that they were about, let's say, about 8 years ago, or thereabout, 5 years ago, that they were competitively. They're no longer that kind of team. They're no longer threatening. At least I do not hold them in that sort of a spirit, or I do not view them that way. And if I'm being honest, yes, I'm not one of those that watches, the Bundesliga, besides following the updates are from there a whole lot. But the German Bundesliga table says it all. They are 11th. After 14 games played, they have a tally of only 16 points. So that clearly tells you the kind of picture that I'm trying to insinuate with. Readest Borussia Dortmund, I think 9 points off the top with 14 games played. They have 29 points, level with a second place RB Leipzig on the German Bundesliga tally. So those two are in action tonight at 10:30 p.m. East African time. It's nonetheless still a big game. In the Italian Serie A, Bologna are up against Inter Milan. So do not miss out on that action. While in France, they are going to be playing Coupe de France. Their games in Coupe de France with Brest up against Avranches, Seneti Roselon up against Montpellier, Crocs up against Reims, Le Mans, Wicamp up against Laval, Lis Habias up against Hangers. The tournament itself is still at a very, very low level. So majority of these teams, I'm sure you and I are hearing them for the first time. But yeah, that's what is happening in France. So don't expect big games out of there. Super Tube says hi, long time. Hi, Super Tube. Good to have you back on the podcast. Let me ask you a question. If you had to watch Dortmund versus Gladbach or Valencia versus Mallorca, which one would you pick? I think I would watch Dortmund versus Gladbach. However, due to limited access, I'm more likely to watch the Valencia game. So that will depend on what I can be able to access. I've told you about, my challenges with, pay TV and stuff like that. Pedri, you have greetings from a super tube there. My previous username got taken. Yeah, I noticed that you spoke with us with the familiarity of the channel, and yet I cannot particularly relate with the name. Kindly indulge us. What was your previous username for purposes of a quick reflection? Dortmund versus Gladbach is more attractive. Indeed, it is. German fans are wild. Okay. Oh, Schmeil. Yes. Schmeil. Yeah. Schmeil was a regular suspect here on the channel. He was one of the fan favorites for the channel. Thank you so much for being back with us. So, guys, we are going to get into the preview for the weekend. During the course of this podcast, I'm expecting on your predictions as we go on. That's why La Liga is failing on international level. Now let me tell you what for example, in the context of my own country, there's a pay TV called GoTV. It's under MalChoice, or was under MalChoice, who used to own DSTV. They've since sold to French a company called Canal Plus. Now, I used to subscribe to the GoTV pay TV. So all the packages that I was able to afford would guarantee me watching the Spanish La Liga and the Italian Serie A. And that was a mid-range package. It would cost somewhere, I think, around $15 to $17 per month, thereabouts, roughly that, at that package. So it would guarantee me watching only, and this would be by chance, that at that level, it would guarantee me watching only 2 Premier League games, and then all, as many as Spanish La Liga games and the Italian Serie A. So I used to oscillate between those two leagues a whole lot. And if I wanted to watch other Premier League games, I'd have to go out in a bar, at a local pub, and I watch from there. Then I upgraded to another package that was close on to what? Was it I think close on to 30 or 20, anywhere between $25 and $30. Thereabout, and then that's when I was able to access all Premier League games. And that was still on a promotional package. So when they scrapped the promotion, I kissed them goodbye because I could not afford them no more. But basically, yeah, that's how pay TV works, and my access to football and some of the limitations. Okay. I had exams. That's why I didn't come. I understand SuperTube or Schmeil, who will win the UEFA Champions League this season. I mean, hard to say, but Bayern Munich are one of the favorites for me. Arsenal could be in the conversation. Barcelona, no, I'm not convinced. I wouldn't put them as favorites, but they do have the pedigree in the competition. Real Madrid, you can never write them off. They're a bit of a tournament team. They've not shown signs that this season they will be that team, but we can never write them off, really. How PSG have behaved, I do not think they will defend their title, but they are still in the conversation because of the caliber of team that they do have, in my opinion. Did you do well? Nice one. Okay, thanks. Mr. Tribe, what did you have for dinner? I just had fried eggs, zested with what we call hot and sweet. It's a tomato sauce with pepper in it. So yeah, just fried eggs. And with me here, I have a mug or a cup of watermelon juice. So yeah, that's my dinner. How about you guys? What are you guys having? Okay, but Barcelona will win La Liga for sure. That's a superb. Pedri acknowledges. Pedri will attest to our own predictions when the season was starting. I did say Barcelona. We did agree with him that Barcelona were favorites. In fact, I had put Atletico Madrid second and Real Madrid third. But how the first, I think, 10, 11 games of the season went, Real Madrid sort of outperformed my own expectations at that stage. And then they've had their own dip in form recently, but they are not so far off. I think last I checked, they were only 4 points behind Barcelona, which is still, not far a distance because, all factors kept constant. You bear in mind they still have to meet the El Clasico. PSG might not win the league this season. Yeah, they've not looked unstoppable in the French League One this season. Yeah, they've not looked unstoppable. That I've taken note of. But again, you know how big teams behave in the context to lesser teams, and by lesser teams I mean teams like Lens who are up there. Is they can lead the table for the longest chunk of time, and these guys with the experience of getting things over the line come and blow you out of the water. Although to the boredom of some, allow me use the example. You remember the campaign of 2022, 2023, Arsenal spent the longest time on the summit of the Premier League table. That was 248 days and still did not win the Premier League title. So, Manchester City came and blew them out of the water with their experience. Of course, Arsenal, one would argue, were the architects of their own downfall, with the mitigating circumstances that they were under at the time. So let's go. That Pedri, Arsenal will win for sure. For sure. We won 3-1 versus Bayern Munich. What do you think about Leonard Karl? I think he's one of the best young talents there is in European football. Leonard Karl, Kenan Yildiz, Nico Paz at Como. Of course, Kenan Yildiz is playing at Juventus. Lamine Yamal, those are some of the shining stars, youngsters as far as European football is concerned. Then, of course, Jamal Musiala would be in the conversation had it not been for those consecutive lengthy injuries, because you remember when he got injured, in Bayern Munich's loss to PSG at the FIFA Club World Cup, he had just equally returned back from, a bit of a lengthy injury, and he went back, but he since returned to training. But they are one of some of the exciting talents, young talents, in as far as European football goes. You can add any other names, to your liking or to your knowledge. So short, true, but as a player, it's a Lebanese dish. Oh, wait, did I miss a comment? A Lebanese dish called shashkoka. Wow, geez, shashkoka, which is fried eggs with tomato paste. Really? I didn't know that to be the case, that it's a Lebanese dish. Football Tribe guy, none is talking about Baleba. So many clubs were interested in him last season. Will he leave Brighton? Yeah, the chances are still there. But what happened is that Carlos Baleba has not had a brilliant start to the season as he was brilliant last season. And remember, when teams were interested, Brighton fended off that interest to say, no, we would like to keep him for another year. For whoever wants him, you're going to have to wait until next summer. If you assess him best by his age, but more importantly, by his performance of this season compared to what it was last season, I would say his price has dropped at least £20 million by now, if you had to buy him now, in comparison to what he would have commanded for you last summer. So if, let's say, last summer you are willing to pay £100 million for him, this right now you could be only willing to pay anywhere between 75 to 80, thereabout. And that in itself, in my opinion, would still be an exaggeration for the Cameroonian, international, in as far as midfielders are concerned. For me, in the Premier League, he's not that a huge contributor in terms of goals and assists. We know he's a central midfielder. He's a very good player. Even good players have bad slumps in form or lack of form. But I do not want to be too harsh on him. He's only 21 years of age. He's only 21 years of age. So there's still room to grow. I think for dinner I had Popoyes or Popos. You know, you guys tend to have, I don't know, I don't want to call them weird names, but uncommon names for some of these things. So Popoyes. A tribe guy probably wanted him at Real Madrid. Not really. I have Lebanese roots, and Spain. Really? Okay. That's how I know a lot of Lebanese food. I have Pakistani and Pakistani roots. That's for Shmail. How is Pakistan? How is your former prime minister who was jailed? I forget his name. Imran Khan. How is he doing? Has the dust settled? Last I checked, you guys were, protesting his detainment when visitors were not allowed to see him. Rate Mr. Tribe's appearance? No. Football tribe. Okay. Football tribe. Who will win the World Cup? World Cup. I do not know who will win, honestly speaking. But the reigning champions Argentina are some of the favorites. France have a very good team, although midfield-wise they're not well balanced. That's what I feel. Spain, the European champions of 2024, yeah, are going to have a say in the conversation of the World Cup. So let's wait and see. England, they are going to be right up there among the top 4 teams at the end of the tournament. At least I would guess so. Imran Khan got shot, but he is alive. That's according to Superb. 6'7". Oh, what do you mean by 6'7"? Who thinks football tribe guy should do 6'7"? 6'7"? What do you mean 6'7"? Indulge me there. Bro, I got my school getting so many times. His fans started protests. Okay. I understand. I went to a live football match and Pakistan lost 5-0. You're not the best of football. You're not even close among the best footballing nations in as far as football is concerned. So I do not think that in itself should be an issue for you if Pakistan is not doing well in football. But what I will say, if it were cricket and they lost terribly, then I would be worried because I, for one, know Pakistan to be really, really good at their cricket. The same applies for India, West Indies, Bangladesh, usually countries from within that region. Search it up. Popoye's Food is a famous American fast food chain. Oh, okay. I didn't know about that one. I've only heard of KFC, McDonald's, and Burger King, those things. Pizza Hut, but I'll look it up. We are doing good in cricket right now. That's superb. Anyways, guys, here's what to come for you as far as the weekend is concerned in the Premier League. Like I said, matches do kick off very early at 3:30 p.m. East African time when Newcastle entertain Chelsea at St. James's Park. So quickly, here's the run of fixtures before we delve into some of them. So, and then at 6 p.m., we'll have 4 games played between Bournemouth and Burnley. Brighton will be at home against Sunderland. Manchester City will take on West Ham United, while Wolverhampton Wanderers will be at home against Brentford. In the first, mid-late kickoff will be between Tottenham Hotspur and Liverpool at 8:30 p.m., while at 11 p.m., we will have Everton up against Arsenal, and then we'll also have Leeds against Crystal Palace, and on Super Sunday we'll only have 1 game between Aston Villa and Manchester United at 7:30 p.m. Released Monaco will be up. Released Fulham will be up against Nottingham Forest. That's for Monday Night Football. A Pakistan footballer is playing for the best team in Sweden as a star. Anyways, goodbye. That's superb. Thank you for being with us. So quickly, Newcastle versus Chelsea. Not an easy game. Not a very, very easy game. to anticipate, Newcastle just finished a game in midweek in which they played up against Fulham in the quarterfinals of the EFL Cup. They won that game by 2-1. A late winner from Lewis Miley, I think, is what turned out to be the match winner, with Sandro Tonali, who came off the bench to provide the assist in that set piece as they won the game by 2-1. But they had been fired into the lead by Yohan Wissa, who was starting his first game in Newcastle colours ever since joining them from Brentford during the course of the recent summer. And then, of course, I think, who was it? It was Sasa Lukic who had scored, I think, 6 minutes after Newcastle's opener to restore parity in that game, but they managed to win it late on. So they come up against a Chelsea team at St. James's Park, who they managed to beat by 2-0. Last season, Chelsea finishing that game down to 10 men, thanks to a 36-minute red card that was suffered by Nicholas Jackson for an elbow. I do not remember particularly against which Newcastle player, but Sandro Tonali had scored in the second minute of that game, and then Bruno Guimaraes put the icing on the cake with the second in the 90th minute as Newcastle won the game by 2-0. Prior to that, the two sides had met at Stamford Bridge, and Chelsea had won the game by 2-1. That was on, I think, match week 9, with Alexander Isak scoring what turned out to be a mere consolation for Newcastle, although at the time it had been an equalizer to cancel out Nicholas Jackson's goal. And then Cole Palmer scored in the 47th minute to strike what made the difference, the ultimate difference in as far as that game was concerned. Then when you go back to last season, but one, Chelsea beat up against Newcastle by 3-2 at Stamford Bridge. Really, Newcastle won the reverse fixture by 4-1. And then you'll also find another 1-1 draw between the two sides in as far as the last 5 meetings go. So that means 2 victories for Newcastle, 2 victories for Chelsea, and 1 draw between the two sides. Oh, somebody just deleted their comments. Unfortunately, I could not quickly take note of who that was. But so it's a fixture that largely Chelsea have dominated in terms of overall Premier League meetings, which are 60. Chelsea having won 31 of those. Whereas Newcastle have won only 6, and then you've had about 13 draws. Instinctively, throughout the course of the day, every time I remember to think about this game, my mind keeps thinking the game will end in a 1-1 draw, or in a draw, maybe 2-2, but at least in a draw. Whereas there's what could differentiate the two sides, and in terms of team strength, in terms of player power and all that thing, because Moises Caicedo is going to return to that midfield, having served his suspension for the straight red card he suffered against Arsenal. So you expect him in that midfield, possibly because of the strength of Newcastle's midfield, where you usually have Bruno Guimaraes, where you have Joelinton, where you have Sandro Tonali. I wouldn't be surprised, I for one, if Chelsea countered that with a midfield trio of Moises Caicedo, Richard James, and Enzo Fernandez in that mix. But then the implication of that is, where do you then play Cole Palmer? Otherwise, if I'm Enzo Maresca, I'm going to go with Caicedo in midfield. I'm going with Enzo Fernandez, with Cole Palmer at the tip of that midfield as the number 10 or free role kind of player, and then put Richard James at right back, where he deserves to play, to have a very, very strong backline, alongside maybe Trevor Chalobah and Wesley Fofana, with Marco Correa to the left and Robert Sanchez in goal. Then up front, I would go with Pedro Neto. I'll go with Joao Pedro. I'll go with Alejandro Garnacho. For this part of Newcastle, Aaron Ramsdale in goal. Maybe Kieran Trippier. I do not know if he's available, to sort of play a game of football for this Newcastle side. But at least I would have Aaron Ramsdale, Kieran Trippier. I would have Dan Ban. I would have Malik Theo. And who are we going to go for? Who are we going to go for? Steven Botman. No, Dan Ban, Malik Theo, and Tino Livramento at right back. And then, but Kieran Trippier had been out for some bit of time, through an injury. So anyway, it could be Lewis Hall. But Fabian Schär is also available. Should he be called to action? But then when it comes to the front three, I think, I don't know. I'd go with Nick Voltmada, of course, to lead the Lions. Never mind that he scored an own goal in their train derby, which they lost to Sunderland by 0-0. What's up? This is Jose Pop. Hi, Jose Pop. Thanks for joining us. He said, what is this channel about? It's a football channel. Thank you so much. It's a sports channel. We do discuss football predominantly. So thank you for joining us. And do let me know where you're joining us from. Otherwise, it's a pleasure to have you on the broadcast. Kindly leave me a like on the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel as well. So Anthony Elanga has yet to hit the pace. So for me, I would be starting Harvey Barnes ahead of Anthony Elanga and Anthony Gordon in that front three for Newcastle to have a go at it. Pedri is so stupid. Tell him to leave the channel. Why do you say that? What causes you to say that Pedri is so stupid? Do you know him personally, or has he made a submission that you disagree with? Hi, how are you, Daniel Tuton? I'm still out because of my hamstring. We wish you the best of a quick recovery and that you can get back to that, playing tough and score some hat-tricks. He seems annoying. Okay, if those are your reservations about him, I'm sure he's been with us, so he should be reading those comments in a few. There. Choose one to stay, me or him. No, I wouldn't choose between my fans to say this or the other. I mean, why? That's a no contest for me. It's a not contest for me. I love all my fans here, whether they disagree between themselves in their opinions or how they view them. That's about them, not for me to decide who is right, who is wrong, by choosing who should stay and who should leave. Anyways, quickly. So, like I said, the biggest battle is going to be in that midfield on how both teams go about it, and my expectation is a draw. It's an early kickoff. Both teams played in midweek. Chelsea were up against Cardiff City, and the one that came by 3-1 with Alejandro Garnacho scoring his first brace for Chelsea. And I think the other goal scorer, was it Joao Pedro, who scored the other goal for Chelsea? So both teams had encounters, but both teams rested some of their big players or their big stars in that regard. What do you think of him? He's a valuable member of this forum. I and him have disagreed on multiple opinions. There's a time he got so mad at me that he deleted all his comments. And his case for that was that I wasn't reading his comments, at least not to the timing of his liking. And that's what happened. So, but he's a valuable member of this forum. Messi or Ronaldo? Let's not simplify football in that way. For me, I wouldn't choose. They're both great players, and we're lucky to have watched them play. Daniel Tutron says, I support Liverpool. Well remembered. Thank you. So for me, I'll go for a 1-1 draw between Newcastle and Chelsea. Yeah. Then quickly, Bournemouth are up against Burnley. Bournemouth, for a team that has been so off form, their performance against Manchester United gave us a bit of glimpse that maybe they are close to bouncing back to the kind of form with which they had started the season earlier on. Now, it's very, very unfortunate. When I put on my lenses or my glasses as an Arsenal fan, I feel bad about that because in a few weeks' time, Arsenal will be playing Bournemouth. That's when at the turn of the new year, after the turn of the new year. So I wouldn't want them to click into form just yet. But nonetheless, their performance against Manchester United, having gone a goal down, scored the equalizer. I think it was Amadou Diallo who scored to open the scoring for Man United. Scored the equalizer through Antoine Semenyo. Went 2-1 down before halftime with Casemiro scoring. Then came back for the second half and scored 2 quick goals, with one being scored by Evan Nilsson and the other by, was it Marcus Tavernier? from the free kick. I sort of struggle to remember who that free kick goal scorer was. But so they made it 3-1, then they conceded. Yes, it was Marcus Tavernier. Then they conceded through a Bruno Fernandes free kick that made it 3-3, and eventually Man United took the lead through Cunha, and then Krupi scored to restore parity. So it was a bit of end-to-end kind of game, one that I really, really enjoyed. Of course, with criticism to how Manchester United poorly defended, with criticism to how Bournemouth poorly defended. But as football fans, especially on a given day where you're not particularly rooting for any particular team, you will take that result because it gave us the goals, it gave us the entertainment that we would ask of a game. Hi, LFC. LFC says it's back. It's been a while, LFC. You've been more on and off lately. I hope you're doing okay, because you went AWOL right just after you had said you had recovered from what had been your illness. But I hope everything is okay with you. Joseph says, I support Arsenal. What about you? I think Gyökeres shouldn't be hated on. We're going to discuss Gyökeres in the course of this broadcast. And I'm also an Arsenal fan. But I love football first before any club. So yeah, in that context, that's where, based on how they did, particularly against Manchester United, is what gives me some form of encouragement, which kind of result also came on the backdrop of a goalless draw against Chelsea at the Vitality Stadium. Wasn't an easy game, but prior to that, they had lost 2 consecutive games against Everton and 3-2 against Sunderland, and then there is also another draw against West Ham. So I do not think they are going to draw another game of football. I think they are going to find a way to win against an off-form Burnley, who lost by 3-2 against Fulham, and have lost, I think, their last 5 fixtures in as far as the Premier League is concerned. So Scott Parker is not having an easy time there managing Burnley. So I'm going to go with a Bournemouth 2-1 win for Bournemouth in that particular game. Then Brighton up against Sunderland. Joseph says, I'm from Kampala, Uganda. I wish I could believe you, but it doesn't sound to be the case. But what part of Kampala do you come from? Because Kampala is, broad. So what part of Kampala do you come from? Let me know. Anyways, if you want me to start believing you. And one thing you find irritating about Kampala. So anyways, Brighton versus Sunderland. We know that Sunderland are one of those teams who won a very difficult team to beat. Nonetheless, they have lost 2 in their last 5 games, drawn 1 and won 2. There are 2 wins coming against Bournemouth, 3-2, and last weekend against Newcastle in the Trainware Derby. Joseph says, Kololo. This is you. Wendy says, I am a bedbug, lives under a bed, then where do cockroaches? In the roaches. Anyways, Joseph says Kololo. That's what part of Kololo? Tell me 2 good places in Kololo. I got to, but okay. Anyways, so like I was saying, Sunderland, a very hard team to beat. They managed a draw against Liverpool. Of course, they lost to Manchester City by 3-0, but recovered well when they met Newcastle and won that game by 1-0. I forgot to add the live in the end of the sentences. Oh, okay. I understood the question, the insinuation. That's why I said roaches. You should Google that. Anyways, so then on the other side, Brighton, a bit on and off. They beat up against Nottingham Forest, beat up against Brentford, lost to Aston Villa. I mean, all teams have literally lost to Aston Villa in recent times. Drew against West Ham, lost to Liverpool. That was their last outing. So I'm not too confident about Uganda National Museum and Kololo Airstrip. Uganda National Museum is not in Kololo. That's Kamocha. famous tourist places. I can see you're googling that when you got Coral Airstrip as a famous tourist place, and then clearly you're googling that because the airstrip is just open ground with paved parts and some grass parts. With the army almost always camped there, but yeah, so I understand your submissions as somebody who would love to visit Kampala, but keep the dream. So, Brighton, Sunderland. I mean, I'm going to go on a limb of faith here and say Brighton will edge it by 2 goals to 1. However, a draw wouldn't surprise me. The Manchester City up against West Ham. I mean, I do not know how many goals West Ham will get beat, but I do know they will get beat. We're talking about a team that got 2 early goals against Aston Villa and could not keep a hold of them. They eventually lost by 3 goals to 2. We're talking about an on-form Manchester City who have scored, I mean, so many goals, as many as what? 14 goals in their last 4 fixtures. 3-2 against Leeds, 5-4 against Fulham, 3-0 against Sunderland, 3-0 against Crystal Palace. I mean, they're just on form. Then on sometime in midweek, they were in action. They won their game against Brentford. I think, was it by 2-0? Yes. Savinho and Ryan Cherki scoring against Brentford in the quarterfinals of the EFL Cup. So they're a very, very on-form team right there. So my expectation is simple for Manchester City to win this game by 5 goals to 1. West Ham is so poor at defending. So that's my prediction. 5-1 Manchester City. You would call it bold, but yeah. Hi, Mr. Tribe. I'm back. Why do I get the feeling, Pedri, you are still with us, although operating in a different account? I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. But, what did I miss? Not much, besides somebody accusing you of, what did they say? You can look through the comment section and find out for yourself. But earlier on, Joseph, made some insinuations. I no longer see his comments. I don't know if they've been deleted or restricted. But yeah, what are you talking about? I mean, anyways, there's somebody who has a bone to pick with you on this channel. It's called Joseph. Joseph something. I do not know what bone he has to pick with you, but probably you guys can engage in the comment section. But that is what you missed while you are with us here. But give us your predictions for the Premier League. Newcastle, Chelsea, Bournemouth, Burnley, Brighton, Sunderland, Man City, West Ham. I've already given mine in that regard. Then quickly, Wolves up against Brentford. We know that Wolves did not make it very easy for the Arsenal in their last Premier League outing, which they lost by 2 goals to 1. They are the worst they are the worst off-form team in the Premier League. They have lost all their last 5. They are constantly searching for their first victory of the Premier League. Pedro says, it was me. I was joking. It was me. You're a good detective. I sensed something wasn't really right. I mean, I just sensed something was off. I mean, I don't know. It was that sense that told me, why is Joseph suddenly picking up on Pedri? And why are they asking me to even choose? Actually, that question of me having to choose really sounded the kind of question that you, Pedri, would actually ask. So I was thinking to myself, this could be Pedri operating under a different name. And he's trying to trick me to see what I will say about him. But it is what it is. Anyways, so, and then on the side of Brentford are not that bad. Thanks for saying I'm a good member. You are a good member. I value my members. Even when we disagree, by the way, I value my members. That's why even when somebody gets mad at me or says something unkind, rarely will I respond with negativity. I try to understand from their point of view. On Google, it says National Museum is in Colorado. They are wrong. It's in Kamocha. As you head towards Bukoto. So after Mulago, it's then Kamocha. That's where the Uganda Museum is. That's where you have you can look for a place called Acacia Mall or Acacia Mall. It's a very popular place in Kampala. It has some good cafes and some supermarkets. It's a department store, really. So around that area. So, but yeah, I understand when you Google the likes of Kololo Airstrip. Anyways, so on the side of Brentford, like I said, a 1-1 draw last weekend against Leeds. Not the best of performances they put out there. I thought they were very lacking, especially going forward. Then they had the loss to Tottenham by 2-0. Prior to that, there was a 2-0 loss to Arsenal. Then you have to go back to the game against, I think, Burnley, when they last won by 3-1, and a loss to Brighton. So they've lost 3 of the last 5, 1-1 and drawn the other. And I have a sneaky feeling that maybe this could be the weekend that maybe Wolves collect their 3 points. I wouldn't bet my hand on it, but something certainly tells me that Wolves will not lose this game. So if they do not win, possibly they could get their 3rd point of the season. But I'm going to go for Wolves to win this game by 2-1. If they can be as disciplined as they were against Arsenal, then they'll have a huge chance. Now, bear in mind that they are not going to go about the Brentford game the same way they went about the Arsenal game by being too defensive, because usually, like I said, in our arguments, in the aftermath of that Arsenal game, is these teams, they approach their own games differently when they meet who they regard to be their own match or teams within the same brackets with them. So they tend to play a more open-ended game. That's why you'll find that a game between Brentford and Wolves can easily end in a 3-2 victory for any of the sides, or even a 4-1 or a 3-1, and yet Arsenal are struggling to score against Wolves because they approach these games really, really differently. Pedri there with a slight laugh. Anyway, so that's my prediction, is that Wolves will win that game by 2-1. Then, Liverpool away to Tottenham Hotspurs. I do not know what to make of Tottenham Hotspurs this season. Honestly speaking, I have nothing against them, but I have nothing for them. Because they're one of those teams, at one point, Tottenham were 3rd on the Premier League globe. Present day, they are as low as, 11th on the Premier League globe? So, nonetheless, the disparity between Tottenham and Liverpool is not that big. I would want to assume it's around 4 points. Only about 4 points. So, with that in mind, it's an opportunity for Tottenham not to necessarily catch up with Liverpool, but to close that gap, to reduce that 4-point gap to a mere point. It's a home game, so that's one of the advantages. To their disadvantage is that they do not win games at home, or they struggle to win games at home. I know the argument is going to be, they beat up against Brentford the other time by 2-0. Yeah, but prior to that, at their own turf, they had just lost to Fulham by 2-1. When you look at their last 5 Premier League meetings, I mean, it's been an absolute struggle. They've lost to Arsenal, they've lost to Fulham, they've lost to Nottingham Forest, they've drawn against Newcastle, they've beaten up against Brentford. And unfortunately, I do not think this is the game that they are going to win. Unfortunately. Liverpool, on the other hand, have been trying to dig themselves out of a hole, and they've done fairly well to that regard. In their last 5 Premier League meetings, they've lost 1 against Nottingham Forest by 3-0. They beat up against West Ham by 2-0. Alexander Isak scoring in that game. I'm trying to remember who the other goal scorer was. Was it Dominic Szoboszlai? No, it was Cody Gakpo, very late in that game. And then they drew 1-1 between Sunderland, drew 3-3 against Leeds United. We remember them conceding that late equalizer, and beat up against Brighton last weekend by 2-0. Hugo Ekitike scoring his sixth and seventh goal of the Premier League season. Mr. Robert K. Sarkos, Mr. Tribe UG, did you watch Rio Fernandez interview with Bruno Borges Fernandez? I've not watched the whole interview, but I've watched some clips from of it. When Bruno Fernandes is talking about what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer told him when he had first joined the club, and he speaks about his commitment to the club, and perhaps somehow insinuates the lack of from maybe certain spheres of that team. So I have not watched the entirety of it, so I will hesitate to comment much about it with that in mind. So in terms of you have to go back to last season but one to find a Tottenham victory against Liverpool, which was a 2-1 victory. It's a kind of game that promises or oftentimes delivers us very, very many goals. For example, last season, Tottenham went away to Liverpool and lost by 5-1. Prior to that, they had lost to Liverpool at their own turf by 6-3. That was last season. Now, one would easily make the argument that Liverpool, the Liverpool we saw last season, is quite different from the Liverpool we are seeing this season. And yet, the Tottenham we are seeing this season is not miles apart from the Tottenham that we saw last season. Regard even with the change of guard in terms of who the manager currently is. I just told 20 people to subscribe. Thank you for any efforts that you take, Pedri. One, to promote this channel, to watch this channel, and everything you contribute. So thank you. So then when you go back to last season but one, again, away to Anfield, Tottenham lost by 4-2, and then they won the earlier fixture by 2-1. But then another Anfield fixture ended in a 4-3 defeat for Tottenham. So the key fact here is that there's so many goals in this game. So many goals. The question is, who is going to outscore the other on the day? One thing that I can almost guarantee is that Liverpool will concede. However, you wouldn't bet your arm on it because Tottenham Hotspurs have been, they've blown hot and cold in this season. When you watch them winning a game, oftentimes they win it convincingly. That makes you think, oh, this is a very decent team. And yet when they are losing a game, like they lost against Nottingham Forest, you could think that's the worst team in the Premier League. I mean, the way they got battered by Nottingham Forest, that game could have easily ended 7-0 or 7-1. You know, that's how bad it was in their last loss. For the game between Liverpool and Brighton, Brighton had some missed chances, but Liverpool equally missed chances on the other side. Mo Salah being one of the culprits. You know? So, that's how I would want to look at it. Then, in terms of, I'm not even inclined to think that there's going to be a battle because Tottenham have not promised us that. They've not shown us that in recent times. And on paper, they have a very, very good team. First of all, Mohamed Kudus, who plays for Ghana, is staying because Ghana are not in the Africa Cup of Nations. So they won't miss. It's not like they're going to be without him. The only player that left was Yuvis Bissouma, I think. And I stand to be corrected if he's the only one, but Yuvis Bissouma left. But we know he's not been a regular starter in this team. So, Demarai Gray, Rodrigo Bentancur, Xavi Simons, Mohamed Kudus, Randall Colomwani, Richarlison, Brennan Johnson. I mean, they have Joao Paulinho. At the start of the season, I think in the first 4 or 5 games, I voted Joao Paulinho as one of the best signings in the summer within those 5 games. Nonetheless, he's not been as consistent as he had been in the first couple of games of the season. He's dropped off. You know, Christian Romero and Mickey Van de Ven on a good day, they can give you a good game, as would Pedro Porro at left back at the space. But you never know what kind of Tottenham side is going to turn up on any given day. Was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer really bad for Manchester United as a manager? I don't want to think so. For context, Pedri, I do not think Manchester United have had any bad managers ever since Sir Alex Ferguson. Not David Moyes, not an interim Ryan Giggs, not an interim Ralph Rangnick, not Jose Mourinho, not an interim Michael Carrick, not an interim Van Nistelrooy, not an Erik ten Hag, not an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, certainly. So, for me, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was not a bad manager for Manchester United. Thomas Frank for Tottenham is a fail for me. I understand, because based on the evidence that you have before you, that wouldn't be a harsh judgment to make on him. But like he said, if you keep firing managers or getting rid of managers, then you'll never build. I think Tottenham ought to acknowledge at some level that we ought to stick to something. This week, I was watching a Tottenham Hotspur fan. I forget her name. She's a lady. I've seen her being featured on TalkSport. I've seen her on DR Sport. I forget her name. If any of you has, had a chance to watch her on any of those channels, you can let me know what her name is. But she was saying she would rather ride along this season, bad as it is, with Thomas Frank than get rid of Thomas Frank now and hope that the World Cup ends soon enough for Tottenham Hotspurs to resign Mauricio Pochettino. That's her aspiration. She thinks that systematically, with limited resources, Mauricio Pochettino is the manager that is capable of reinvigorating that Tottenham Hotspur side. That's a belief. Whether you share those beliefs or don't, that's a story for another day. Pedri says Man United had never had a bad manager after Ferguson. It's the club facilities that Ronaldo said are old, but also I feel like your stadium makes a difference in how you play. They need a new stadium. Are you talking about Abby Summers? Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if I think she's called Abby. But I've seen her on different occasions, having a chat with Robbie Lyle and Troops, or in some YouTube clips. So maybe that's her name. So, Pedri, I'm going to disagree with you on the stadium part. Whether you play in a new stadium or an old stadium, you have to play good football. In any case, some teams go to new stadiums and struggle to play some good football. But what I would say is that Man United over the years have had structural problems or challenges that have not aided the success of managers that they brought in. Louis van Gaal tried to rebuild that team. And after winning the FA Cup in 2016, when they beat Crystal Palace by 2-1, he was sacked. So I did not think Louis van Gaal was a bad manager. Many of his games were boring to me because I thought there were too many back passes between Chris Smalling and David De Gea or Phil Jones, whoever played in those roles. But he was trying to build a new team. Some criticize him for signing the likes of Marcos Rojo, Daley Blind, signing the French player. His name is eluding me. The French forward player. From Monaco. Jesus Christ. Pedri, let me know what that name is. I'm struggling to remember it. Anthony Martial. Yes, Anthony Martial. That's the name I was looking for. Those were some of his signings, really. So I do not want to think Man United have had bad managers. But back to the topic of Thomas Frank, I think Thomas Frank equally needs time. I mean, moving from Brentford to Tottenham Hotspurs is an enormous upgrade. You're talking about a team that wants to qualify for the UEFA Champions League season in, season out. They have qualified for the UEFA Champions League on the verge of winning the UEFA Europa League. So they've had a piece of silverware. They have more resources than Brentford, and you have been accorded the resources. Maybe not enough to your liking, but at least some have been accorded to you. And you ought to start somewhere. You ought to start somewhere in building that team. So I think I'm one of those that thinks he should be given time. However, if they are to get rid of him, either during the course of the season or at the end of the season, I would understand, because largely there's an impatience at that level of football management. There's an impatience with clubs or with fans. But back to the game itself, Liverpool on the other side, whereas they managed to beat up against Brighton, I wasn't too sold on their performance. Like, it wasn't Liverpool at Anfield level of dominancy kind of thing, because Brighton edged possession to 51%. XG was 1.9 for Brighton and 1.89 for Liverpool. So you can see that they were evenly matched, albeit Brighton only had one shot on target. So Brighton did not capitalize on their chances, on some of the chances they created, particularly in that early in the second half. And that is what cost them at the end of the day, in my opinion. So, but like I said, they come up against a Tottenham Hotspur side who's a bit of a known quantity. You do not know what to expect of this Tottenham side. You can expect them to be very good on a given day and very poor on another day. Nonetheless, I'm going to go for a 3-2 victory for Liverpool. Liverpool to win by 3-2. That's my prediction for that game. Then quickly, in the late kickoff games, that's on Saturday, Leeds up against Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace drew their game in the UEFA Conference League. They had a good chunk of their players well rested, so there won't be excuses of tired legs. They do not have so many injuries, apart from Taichi Kamada, who is struggling with the hamstring, Daniel Munoz and Cheki Diakore, who have knee injuries, and Caleb Akopa, who has a back issue. So really, when I look at that game in context, I think, one, it should be a winnable fixture for Crystal Palace. However, away to Elland Road is not an easy place to go there. Ask Chelsea, they will tell you how difficult it is to go to Elland Road and win a game of football. We are talking about a team who in their last 5 games have beaten up against Chelsea, have drawn against Liverpool and against Brentford, really losing to Manchester City and Aston Villa, 2 of the most informed teams in the Premier League. So really, that tells you that they have built some bit of character, because even though they fell against Manchester City, it's not like they did not compete. It was a 3-2 score, So Crystal Palace on the other side have lost 2 consecutive games. Have lost a game against Manchester City, and will be hoping to bounce back, because they've lost 2 in the last 5, losing to both teams coming from the city of Manchester. They lost 2-1 against Man United at Selhurst Park. For those of you that can't remember, Mason Mount and Joshua Zirkzee, the goal scorers, released Jean-Philippe Mateta had scored from the penalty spot for Crystal Palace's goal. Then in those 5 games, they've beaten up against Fulham by 2-1. They've beaten up against Burnley and Wolves. So I think they could edge this one by 2-1. So I'm going to go with the Crystal Palace victory, 2-1. Really, they want to win that game and quickly take on Arsenal on Tuesday in the quarterfinals of the EFL Cup next week. Then, lastly, on Saturday's late kickoff, Arsenal come up against Everton. Mikel Arteta was speaking to the press today, and of course, he came in defense of his striker. I've seen images or clips of training with Victor Gyökeres training with Eberechi Eze. Eberechi Eze trying to constantly feed him the ball, and as Victor Gyökeres went through his shooting drills. I think Victor Gyökeres will come good. For those of you that were with us earlier, I think it was Supertube who asked me, was it him or it was somebody else who had asked me about Victor Gyökeres? One, I think the media or the analysts and things in that regard have been a little too harsh on him. Some have been quick to throw context out of the window, context in the form of that he did not have a preseason with this team, that he's had to be overplayed because Arsenal had injuries with their strikers, particularly Kai Havertz and Gabriel Jesus. The fact that he himself, because of that poorly managed game load, he ended up suffering an injury that kept him out for almost a month. That he's come back and he's yet to find the chemistry between him and his teammates and things like that. So, yeah, they are still a factor, Nonetheless, I still think he will come good. Now, Arsenal come up against a team that they struggled to beat last season. In fact, did not beat last season because at the Emirates Stadium, the game ended in a goalless draw, released the reverse fixture in which Leandro Trossard scored to give Arsenal the lead. And I think it was Ilman Ndiaye who scored from the penalty spot to restore parity, ended in a 1-1 draw. When you go back to last season, but one, that's when you find a home and away victory for Arsenal. 2-1 at the Emirates and 1-0 at Goodison Park. Now, this is the first time that Arsenal are making the trip to Everton's new Hill-Dixon Stadium. Unfortunately for Everton, they've suffered a couple of injuries ahead of this fixture. Ilman Ndiaye is going to be away, I think, for AFCON. Idris Gana Gueye, the Senegalese international. Jack Grealish is available to start. However, the fixture possibly comes too early for Kenan Drisbury-Hall, who has been a very, very key member in that midfield or attacking midfield for Everton. James Garner should be in that team as well. Expect James Tarkowski as captain in that backline, alongside Michael Keane, alongside Jack O'Brien and Myakalenko at left back. Maybe Dwight McNeil will start this game. Carlos Alcaraz, maybe he steps in for Kenan Drisbury-Hall. Tony Barry, will he be available? I don't think so. But my point is, Everton, their last game, they lost to Chelsea by 2-0. Goals from Cole Palmer and Malo Gusto. But Gerard Braithwaite is out, Seamus Coleman, like David Moyes said, Grealish is back. I will be fit to play. But on the side of Arsenal, Gabriel Magalhaes, he started doing some work. He's on course to recovery. Contrary to earlier reports that Kai Havertz had suffered an injury setback, according to Mikel Arteta, his rehabilitation is going on well and could be a matter of weeks before we see him return to action. He was being pressed to see whether Big Gabby will be back for the game against Aston Villa. That will be, I think, on the 30th of this month. But he did not commit to that. Mikel Arteta, he can be a bit very cagey when it comes to his team news, But very, very strong team. I think the way Everton will look to approach this game is not going to be any different from the way Wolves approach the game against Arsenal. The only difference will be is that because of the kind of quality that Everton do possess, that is slightly better in their squad as compared to Wolverhampton Wanderers is that you could have Everton be a bit more explorative going forward, not too open, but at least they will possess a bigger threat going forward. Then okay. Quickly, I thought I should pull out some comments, maybe from Mikel Arteta, in regards to his press conference. Meanwhile, okay, yes, Mikel Arteta on Victor Yokeres, he sort of went a little bit in depth. He said, you can imagine the global impact that you are going to have to deal with when you come to a big club and when the expectation is as it is. But afterwards, you have to leave it, and leaving it always slightly different to your imagination. That was him, speaking about Victor Yokeres. He said, in his individual assessment of the Swedish striker, he said, I think the level of attention on him hasn't changed since he signed to today. That's normal. Everybody was so excited to bring a number 9 into the club. We did it. We played. We brought a player with an incredible scoring record that had to adapt to the league. He had no preseason. The first few weeks were difficult because physically he wasn't in his best state. And he's a player that needs that, like any other player in this league, almost to perform at that level. Then he kicked on, according to Mikel Arteta. I think he had a really good period and he got injured. Now he's back, but I saw a lot of positive things in the last 2 games that he's done. We need to continue to tweak and understand him a little bit better in certain situations, and he needs to do the same. But that's about time, and we have full support for him. Now, particularly, I want to pick on that line where he says that in the last few games, he's seen a lot of positives in the last 2 games. But he goes on to say, we need to continue to tweak and understand him a little better in certain situations, and he needs to do the same. Again, we've talked about this adaptability thing of how Arsenal are not acclimatized to playing with that kind of a striker. And also, Victor Yokeres is not accustomed to playing with a team that tends to build up their play quite really, really slow. He's used to running in spaces. He's used to being found really, really early. As soon as he makes the move, he expects the ball to be passed to him, or, other players to be making certain moves that then shift him into a certain position where he can be quickly played in that bit of space. So he loves to run in spaces. Yet he's come up against teams that play with a low block, so they do not accommodate you lots of spaces. Then his teammates are struggling to find him. They will find him on a few occasions, and then people will judge him based on those very few occasions. For me, like I said, I would be worried if he was missing lots of chances, but that's not the case. It's easier to get those chances. So even Mikel Arteta knows well that they need to tweak a few things and understand him a little better, as he also tries to adapt to their own playing style. He went on to add, and I quote, at the end, you have to experience the scrutiny. You can't imagine the global impact that you are going to have to deal with when you come to a big club, and the expectations are as it is. But after you have to leave it, and leaving it always slightly different to your imagination. But he is doing it with a lot of desire. I think his energy level, his commitment, and are absolutely top. And we are here to help him because we all been here. We all need time. There is always moments, and the strikers have moments. They score more goals, less goals, and we need to be there for him. I think Mikel Arteta is also privy, or he's been seeing what's been happening online. For those of you that are regulars on this channel, you ought to remember that we did a broadcast, particularly discussing why Victor Gyökeres was being overly discussed by the media and the unfair debates that were being peddled in his criticism. And I went on to say that it almost feels like there's a cohort of people who literally want him to fail. So, anyways, it is what it is. It is what it is. But yeah, those were some of the comments from Mikel Arteta in far as Victor Gyökeres was concerned. But like I said, the fixture will come to a little too early for some of those Arsenal players, the likes of Gabriel Magalhaes, Kai Havertz, Christian Mosquera, Max Dorman, Ben White. He said for Ben White, it is not as bad as it seems. He has a history of recovering fast. So he will miss a few games. However, knowing Mikel Arteta, when he says he will miss a few games, you never know whether it's going to be 2 or it's going to be 4 or 6 games. We'll have to wait and see. Martin Zubimendi had to train alone for some time just for load management. Other than that, he's really, really fine. So yeah. Now, given all the criticism, fair and unfair, that we pelted towards Arsenal following their poor performance or underperformance against Wolverhampton Wanderers, this is the game in which they have to respond. It's not an easy game to ask for a team to respond, but there's no better opportunity, because if you do not have a good enough performance against the bottom team, we would then expect you to have the 100% opposite flip of a performance against a third-place Aston Villa or a second-place Manchester City. So the opportunity comes with an Everton, who are a 9th on the league standings. Now, by the time Arsenal play this game on Saturday, Manchester City will have already beaten up against West Ham. That means they will be at the summit of the Premier League table. What does that mean? More pressure for Arsenal to win the game and reclaim their spot at the summit of the Premier League table. Are they capable of doing it? Most definitely, yes. Will they collapse under pressure? They could, because Everton will be under very little to no pressure. They have no pressure in this game. It's not deciding where they finish this season. It's not a relegation. It's not like they're looking to bounce out of relegation or anything. Nothing. So all the pressure is with the Arsenal to win this game. The only pressure Everton would have is that if they do win the game, they could go as high as 5th on the Premier League globe. Other than that, there's not much to play for if you're Everton. So, which will put Arsenal under that bit of pressure. So how could Arsenal set up? Ricardo Carafiori is going to return at left back, I presume, following his suspension, having completed suspension for the 5 yellow cards he had accumulated. David Ryan Cole, Jurriën Timber at right back, Gabriel Magalhaes, Piero Hincap in that back line alongside William Saliba. Ahead of them, contrary to my tests at this opportunity, expect Martin Zubimendi, Declan Rice. But if I was Mikel Arteta, I'd go with a single pivot. I'd start with Declan Rice, play Martin Odegaard alongside Ebeleche Eze. So Odegaard plays as my 8 and Ebeleche Eze as the 10. Then Bukayo Saka to the right, Leandro Trossard to the left, and Victor Gyökeres. So in some of my changes, I can throw on Zubimendi for an Odegaard or for an Eze, depending on how the game is going for either of those players. I could take off a Leandro Trossard and bring in a Martinelli. I could take off Saka for a Madueke, a Gyökeres off for a Gabriel Jesus. So you will have the options. All those players are there. Now, there's also been the debate or the question that with the availability of Mikel Merino, Gabriel Jesus, and Victor Gyökeres, who would you start? I do not think it would be wise to start Gabriel Jesus a game of football. He had not played in 11 months. So as good and sharp as he's looked for the minutes he's played against Club Brugge and against Wolverhampton Wanderers over the weekend, starting him a game of football on Saturday wouldn't be the wisest of decisions. Maybe I'd contemplate him starting against Crystal Palace, a team against whom he scored a hat-trick. I think the last time he met them in the EFL, was it the EFL Cup or the FA Cup? The EFL Cup last season. So that would be my consideration. So my prediction, I'm going to go Arsenal to win by 2-0. It will be difficult. Jordan Pickford, on a good day, can make the best goalkeeper in a Premier League football, in a Premier League game. But he can also collapse. James Tarkowski is going to be as physical and bullish on Gyökeres as they come. Michael Keane, like I said, Myakalenko is going to mark Bukayo Saka all day, all evening, all night. Whether eventually Saka can get the better of him, we'll have to wait and see. But my prediction is a 2-0 victory for the Arsenal, for that one. For the Sunday night game, I think, I don't know, can we preview this one tomorrow? Maybe tomorrow. We'll preview the Man United game tomorrow, and then Fulham, that one will come on Monday, but I want us to run away to other leagues. Do not forget, the Africa Cup of Nations does get underway on Sunday at 10 p.m. East African time. That game will be played, will be the opening game of the tournament. And then other games will follow on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to conclude match day 1. So in the Spanish La Liga tomorrow, Rio Oviedo will be up against Celta Vigo, Levante will be up against Sociedad, Osasuna will take on Deportivo Aves, while Sevilla will be away to Real Madrid at 11 p.m. Augsburg in the German Bundesliga will take on Werder Bremen, FC Cologne will take on Union Berlin, Hamburg will take on Eintracht Frankfurt, VfB Stuttgart will be up against Hoffenheim, while Wolfsburg will take on Freiburg, RB Leipzig will take on Bayer Leverkusen. In the Italian Serie A, Lazio will be up against Cremonese, while Juventus at 11:15 p.m. will be up against AC Roma. Then on Sunday, in the Spanish La Liga, Atletico de Madrid will play away to Girona. Barcelona will be at home against Villarreal. Not an easy game. I wish Pedro was still here to give us his insights and predictions for the Barcelona game. Elche will be up against Rayo Vallecano. Real Betis will take on Getafe. In the German Bundesliga, Mainz, Au5 will be up against St. Pauli, while Heidenheim will be getting beat by Bayern Munich. In the Italian Serie A, Cagliari will be up against Pisa. Sassuolo will take on Torino. Fiorentina will take on Udinese. Genoa will take on Atlanta. And then AFCON, there at 10 p.m., that's on Super Sunday, will come up. And then fixtures, of course, will proceed to Monday, and we'll be letting you know what those fixtures will be in as far as Monday is concerned. But the Spanish La Liga will have Athletic Bilbao up against Espanyol, Mali will be up against Zambia, South Africa will take on Angola, Egypt will be up against Zimbabwe, while Napoli in the Italian Super Cup will be awaiting to play whoever goes through between Bologna and Inter Milan. So yeah, that's some of the action that you ought to look forward to in as far as the weekend is concerned. In the Premier League, in the Italian Serie A, in the Spanish La Liga, the German Bundesliga. Right now, as we speak, it's a goalless game between Valencia and Mallorca, while Borussia Mönchengladbach are 1-0 behind against Borussia Dortmund. That goal scored by Julian Brandt. So do not miss out on all that. You've been such a wonderful audience. Thank you so much, Pedri. Thank you so much, Daniel Tuton, thank you so much. LFC, thank you so much. SuperTube, for having been part of this broadcast this evening. I hope you enjoy the wonderful weekend. It's going to be a bit of a busy weekend for me. I do not know whether I'll be able to do all the broadcasts that we usually do on weekends. That's Saturday mid morning, then Saturday at 11 p.m., and then Sunday at 11 p.m. But whatever time will afford us to be able to do is what we shall do. Otherwise, I wish to say thank you to all our new subscribers who have recently joined the community. Welcome to the Football Tribe UG community. I can see we are 2,882 subscribers at the moment. So thank you so much for always sparing the time for to follow what we do every single day there while you are with us. So keep doing what you do, and we will keep serving you the very best. Stay blessed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye for now.